I'm dressed in Chiefs outfit. They're our Kansas City Chiefs. They won their second Super Bowl in a row, and there was a big parade today. Sadly, at the end of that parade, there was a shooting. One person was killed and 27 wounded. Happens almost every day somewhere in the United States because we have unregulated gun situation. Now, there is a parallel, there's a number of parallels in our life, but in 1929, the stock market collapsed. Actually, all the stock markets collapsed, and around the world, and a Great Depression happened. And Herbert Hoover, the president at the time, was a believer in laissez-faire economics, and he felt like the government should stay out of the business of the financial situation, the financial corporations. And so he did nothing. He couldn't do anything because ideologically he couldn't think of anything to do, or he didn't want to do anything. And so he didn't. And so in the next election, he and his party got crushed. I don't think he ran again. I can't remember who ran for the Republicans, but they were crushed. And they were crushed by the New Deal and Franklin Roosevelt. And they were crushed because not being able to do something about a situation that threw millions of people, and we're talking somewhere about 15 million people in a country that was a lot smaller than in number of people than it is now. That was a lot of people. It was a high percentage of the population. And to not be able to do anything, and to not be able to, find regulations for banks and that sort of thing. This was just unacceptable. And so the New Deal rolled in, and of course, all those laissez-faire folks, they were out of luck at that point. And something needed to be done. Now, ultimately, the Great Depression lasted most of the 1930s, and what really pulled us out of the Depression was World War II, where we basically borrowed $1 billion and poured it into our war-making process, and that stimulated the economy in spades. It also created lots of inflation, but that's a whole nother thing. The point is that we can't do anything at this point. We cannot do anything because, first of all, our politicians, by and large, are scared to death to do anything, and they don't have any. The way the laws are written in most states and in the federal government, there just isn't. I mean, it's ridiculous for there to be assault weapons, infantry assault weapons available to everybody. Now, if you read the Second Amendment, you realize that it's been reinterpreted for the present situation. It basically is they weren't quite sure they were going to have a standing army, and or they weren't real happy about the idea of a standing army, and so they thought that there would be militias, and so The Second Amendment was really meant to regulate militias, but it didn't and hasn't, um, and what isn't really being used for that purpose now. Now it's being used for the purpose of selling weapons to anybody who wants to buy them, good or bad. And most people are not going to misuse their weapons. The vast majority of people, but still, there's so many weapons, and there's no regulation of them to speak of. I mean, weapons ought to be licensed. The police ought to know where weapons are. If they go to a home where there's somebody's barricaded themselves in with hostages, it might be a good thing for the police to know how many weapons are in that house, and what those weapons are. But that is definitely something that Second Amendment fundamentalists wouldn't want, and will try not to allow. So we can't really go on with this situation. I mean, we can just keep shooting our neighbors, essentially. These random shootings just happen all the time, and pretty much weekly there's something major that happens. I mean, so here we have this great celebration of our football team, and somebody takes guns to the thing and starts shooting it up. Oh, my goodness. Now, I understand that the police actually did find some persons of interest and weapons. So I assume justice will grind slowly, but it will grind finely. Well, what I want to say about all that is that this is our political situation. A little bit analogous to prohibition. A group of temperance people decided that getting rid of alcohol was a good idea, so they passed an amendment to disband it, and then the legislature created enabling legislation, and so overnight alcohol was illegal. Now, I have to tell you that I was born in St. Louis and grew up there part of my life, and I can remember people talking about how you could go to the store and Anheuser-Busch couldn't make beer, but they could put all the ingredients for it on the shelves, so you could go home and make it in your bathtub if you wanted to. Illegal sales just skyrocketed because human behavior is not going to change just because somebody's decided to make it illegal. There are things we can do that work better, but some kind of regulation for some kind of things that are important. And what we have now is a libertarian situation. We are libertarians about gun control. There is none. And a minority, a potent minority, but a minority of the country wants that. And so far has been able to hold off the rest of the country from erasing their advances. I don't think we're going to put up with this forever. We didn't put up with prohibition for more than about a decade, and It's been since the 1970s that this has been going on gradually, um, changing the political situation. Uh, and of course, you know, they say, well, all you need to do is have somebody else who has a gun at these situations that can shoot back. Well, the problem is with that idea is that, you know, the police regularly register their guns. They go out and shoot them. So they know how to shoot them. And they have to do that periodically. Somebody who is a civilian who owns a gun may not ever shoot it, or may have shot it once or twice. A few may have regularly shot their weapon, but they're not well trained. They just aren't. And who knows who they're going to hit and what they're going to shoot at. And, you know, panic is probably the worst part of all of that. If you panic in the middle of a situation like that, who knows where that bullet's going to go? Well, there are certainly competent people who could engage, but then at Uvalde, Texas, the law enforcement people didn't engage when they should have to try to intervene in a school shooting. They didn't do it. Now, did they do it out of malice? No, I don't think so. It sounded like they, for a while, they thought that the shooter, the shooting situation was not an active shooter any longer. It was well, anyway, we don't need to go there. But what we do need to say and understand is that this is a libertarian situation. And for those of you who like libertarian life, that's what it's like not to have any regulations. There's not a damn thing that anybody can do for gun regulation because of the way the laws are written. Nothing. It's laissez-faire. You can get a weapon without even getting an investigation to see whether you're somebody who should have a weapon or not. Well, anyway, I just think that's an important thought. If you are concerned about libertarian life, take a good look at gun control and you realize that's what libertarianism is. No regulations on things that probably need to be regulated because human behavior is not going to cooperate. And it isn't. Parade and celebration of the Super Bowl win ruined by some active shooter, or shooters, actually. It turns out there were 3 of them. Anyway.